2018. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public and the press on January 5th, 2018, and was posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-7.
Roll call.
Councilmember Ooms?
Here.
Councilmember Kadish?
Here.
Councilmember Van Tassel?
Here.
Councilmember Allberger?
Here.
Council President Murphy?
Here. Please rise to salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to have enough paper for this.
Good evening. We'll start the meeting with public comment. Everyone is limited to 3 minutes. This public session is for items on the agenda only, and I would just ask if somebody is up speaking, if everybody in the audience could be a little respectful and not speak amongst you, because then it becomes very difficult for other people to hear. So if there's a, may I have a motion?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone that would like, sure, come on.
My name is Craig Williams. I'm from the Glenwood section of the township. I'm speaking tonight about the resolution number 18-197. And that relates to the Open Space Trust Fund and how 30% of those funds are to be spent in terms of a referendum on the upcoming ballot. I've been involved in this from the very beginning. I had hair then. I don't have hair now. And at one point in my working on these things, I thought that what we're talking about now would be anathema, that was not what was intended. It's sat largely fallow for the last number of years. We've only been working towards and actually having progress towards creating space that we didn't have before and creating trails that we didn't have before. And if this were to be placed on the ballot for public up or down, and if it was approved, it would cement the progress that we've achieved so far. And I thoroughly endorse the idea that this ought to be presented to the public for their up or down vote. I've been in the trenches with my weed whacker and whatever, trying to voluntarily create these things, and it is now pretty obvious to me that we've gone past, because of how much we've done, the idea that volunteerism alone can actually achieve what we need to achieve. So the funds, even though this is a one-time shot, and ultimately the approval of the use of the funds is in your hands, should this come to pass, is something that really will enable us to provide something viable to the township, and it would then, because of its viability, because of the fact that people are using it and doing this stuff and getting out there and enjoying this, make the idea of doing more even more palatable. And there's cost involved in everything, but in this instance, it's money we already have. And I would certainly hope that you would affirm the idea. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to step up?
Good evening. My name is Kelly Weller, and I'm here on behalf of the Vernon Township Board of Recreation.
And I'm Carolyn Case, and I'm here for the same thing, Board of Rec.
So we're here tonight to ask the Town Council to vote yes on tonight's open space ordinance and give the voters of our town the chance to voice their opinion. A goal of the Board of Recreation is to ensure that the recreation needs of our community are met and will continue to be met. Hosting and volunteering for various town events has given us the opportunity to talk to town residents about what types of recreation and events they would like to see excuse me, and continue, and those they would like to see developed. We want to ensure that our goals remain the same and we can continue to develop and provide activities to the town through our volunteer work. One of our town's biggest strengths is our location. We're situated in one of the most beautiful areas of New Jersey. We should continue to develop this four-season activities that not only enhance the lives of our townspeople, but also attract people to the area. We believe the town needs to develop activities and events that are independent of the ski resort. We recommend that a portion of open space funds that have been available for over 12 years be used to ensure that recreational activities remain a priority and that new opportunities can be developed. We ask that you please vote yes tonight and allow this question to go on the November ballot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Doreen Edwards, Highland Lakes. A while ago, I read in the newspaper that the present owners of Mountain Creek were going to court in regards to their chapter, and that they did not want to pay. They were going for a ruling on whether they had to pay the fees in regards to the sewer and, I guess, the facility there. I wondered what happened with that. I haven't heard anything from that.
The court hasn't made a ruling yet.
They heard the case?
They did not hear the case. They did not make a ruling, and we will not provide comment on pending litigation.
So they didn't hear the case.
They did not.
Were we present at that court?
There was no hearing.
There was no hearing. So what's going to happen going forward?
There may be a hearing at a later date. The court will let the parties know. Right now, there's no
Vernon
hearing.
Township being a party.
Yes, we'll find out if there's a hearing date.
Okay. And then secondly, I was wondering what happened with the court date. I guess, Mr. Selinsky, you were there in regards to the land, the situation with the dumping on that property on Silver Spruce. Was it that the wording was not correct, that we didn't get the ruling we were looking for as a township, or what happened?
Yes, we were in court on Friday to enforce the Soil Conservation District stop work order from 2014. Judge Brennan denied that request. The township is considering its options, and I would ask that council members not provide any further comment on pending litigation.
Okay, well, I think it alluded to some fact of why, in one of the local newspapers, why it wasn't granted or why Vernon didn't win that verdict.
The judge felt that Mr. Wallace was not violating the stop work order.
Okay, so back to, was it not worded correctly as far as the township?
I don't know what newspaper article you're referring to, and we're not going to comment further on pending litigation.
That's an easy way out. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone else? Yes.
Hello, I'm Dave O'Brien from Highland Lakes, and I'm here regarding the property maintenance ordinance. And just wanted to say that most of us are in favor of property maintenance, people keeping their yards neat, but the snow removal aspect of it puts all the responsibility for sidewalks that we don't even use on the homeowner the way it's stated. I measured today, and from my house to the part of the sidewalk that I'd be responsible for is 0.3 of a mile. I would have to go the entire length of my street up to Breakneck and all the way back to get to an area that borders my property. It's not part of my yard at all. It's just an area where Vernon Township decided to put the sidewalk. Doesn't help us or anyone on my street at all, and we don't want to be responsible for having to clear the snow or the gravel or anything on the sidewalk. And lastly, I just want to say that if Vernon Township is maintaining that road, and if your plows are putting the snow on the sidewalk and spreading the gravel, then I think that Vernon Township should be responsible for clearing the sidewalk. And until that's resolved, I would hope that you would not pass this ordinance until it can be investigated and you can see the unique situation. It's not like a small town where you walk 20 yards out your front door and shovel a little driveway. It's not easily accessible.
With regard to the sidewalks in Highland Lakes, over the past 2 days over the weekend. Your attorney and I have communicated and exchanged several pages of documents and information. The one thing that I asked for your attorney to provide, and I think that would be helpful, is if there's a survey that shows with a meets and bounds description what the town conveyed, where the road's located, where the sidewalk's located. I think, and the attorney agreed that that would be helpful. I think the best way to proceed, my recommendation to the council is that the ordinance be adopted, that thereafter I meet with your attorney with the surveys. We go over the land that is affected, the land that's not affected. We can then work together to have a meeting with representatives of Highlands Lakes, representatives of the council, and come to an amenable resolution. But it's difficult to answer questions in the abstract without seeing the actual surveys showing what land is located where and who owns what.
Why wouldn't we table the ordinance until those issues are solved?
Those issues may take some time to resolve, and as you indicated earlier, you're in favor of the majority of the ordinance. It's not going to be snowing anytime soon, and I think that we can probably resolve this before the first snowfall.
And it's not something that's going to, it's not an issue that our attorney plans on just sitting on and waiting a month. It's something to address immediately, because we're not in a snow season, but we are coming to it. And by the way, I did actually go and take pictures today of your property. I drove into this spot, and I did provide them with the attorney just to show them. Also from the parking lot to show the sidewalk right adjacent. So I did bring them.
Okay. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Yes. Hi.
Hi, I'm Eileen Bourne. I'm the attorney for Highland Lakes Country Club and Community Association. So I just wanted to clarify one of the things Mr. Zielinski and I did communicate over the weekend, but because there are individual properties along Breakneck Road, only a portion of which is club property, the rest are individually owned by the property owners as well as the church and the fire department property. The club doesn't have a copy of this survey. This was the township survey. So Vernon Township did a survey at the time of the road dedication of the strip that they wanted to acquire along Breakneck Road and the property from each individual property owner that they wanted to acquire in order to put the sidewalks in there. So the club or the individual properties wouldn't necessarily have a copy of that survey. I believe, what I stated was that would be something Vernon Township would have. There was a site plan done, and so all of the engineering work was done by Vernon Township engineers, so that's where that information would be. So we wouldn't want to see the ordinance pass and then this handled on an individual basis. It just doesn't make any sense to do it that way.
No, I wasn't suggesting that it be handled on an ad hoc basis by each property owner, but it's difficult for me in communicating with you over the weekend to kind of give an ad hoc interpretation of the ordinance as it affects individual properties. I'd rather have a global view of what do these properties look like, what is township owned, what's not township owned, and come to a resolution that's equitable for everybody, including the property owners and the lake community.
But the problem with passing the ordinance now is it will impact these properties along Breakneck Road, whereas to table this and do the investigation first, it makes a little bit more sense, and then if there needs to be an exception made for the Breakneck Road properties, it can be done at the time the ordinance is passed.
Certainly, but we could also pass the ordinance and then do the exception later, but that's ultimately a determination for the council to make.
Okay, well, we're going to register our objection. I know a lot of the people here want to talk about that. I don't know if you want to hear from the individual owners at this time, or you want to wait for the hearing?
It's their prerogative if they'd like to, to get up and speak. However, I'm not sure how quickly you would be able to actually meet to start the process.
We could meet, I'm sure we could look at our calendars and come up with a date that's convenient.
The meeting is not so much the problem as it is, my understanding was getting the information from Vernon Township, which we have copies of the original deeds, but not of the original survey of the area that Vernon Township had asked the property owners to dedicate, but we don't have the plans that were done by Vernon Township. That's all in the possession of Vernon Township. And again, we would urge that we look at the information first before passing the ordinance, as opposed to the opposite.
Yeah. And how difficult is it to amend it? Is it a matter of 2 meetings?
It'd just be amending any other ordinance.
So,
I mean, we're certainly willing to do the work on our end, quickly, but, would urge the council not to pass the ordinance tonight based on these problems that you're going to hear from the owners about.
Okay, is there anyone else? If you have anything else? Because that's just delaying the meeting.
Okay,
Do you
no, I don't have anything to add, although I would like to, once everyone gets a chance to get up and talk, I know we do have, representatives from Highland Lakes Country Club who want to talk a little bit about the history of this, so I would like an opportunity to wrap up some of that information.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening. Bruce Zaretsky, Vernon. I want to comment, if I can, on two ordinances. I just want to voice my support for the Pathway Development and Maintenance Ordinance. I think that's a great idea, using some of those funds that have been sitting there for years, not benefiting the town in any practical way. The second ordinance I'd like to comment on is the maintenance ordinance, particularly the snow removal part, the sidewalk snow removal part. I own property on Church Street. I own property on the east side of Church Street, number 14 Church Street. The road, I'd say the whole Church Street from Vernon Crossing Road to Route 94 is probably a few thousand feet long. My property is 100 feet long. I'm the only sidewalk on that side of the street. When you walk from one end of the sidewalk to the other, you encounter a rock wall that's about 2.5 feet tall. And you'd have to climb over that wall to get onto the grass of the next piece of property. So it's really a sidewalk to nowhere, which is really, you could describe as many of the sidewalks in the Vernon Town Center area are sidewalks to nowhere. If you take a look at the sidewalk that was put in front of the CVS, that's another sidewalk that doesn't go anywhere. It connects to the Highland State Bank sidewalk, which also doesn't go anywhere. I would say the whole sidewalk ordinance really needs to be rethought. I would say if we had a connection of sidewalks that really served the walking public, I think it would be a good thing to do. But, over the years, properties have come for planning board approval, and one of the requirements were to put in a sidewalk. I think that it may be in the town's best interest to create sidewalks on every piece of property and let the township put it in and possibly assess the property owners for those portions of their sidewalks, but at least we'd have sidewalks that would connect and go somewhere where you could really take a walk. But there's a lot of properties. Frank Primavera owns 4 lots on Church Street. 2 of his lots have sidewalks in front of them. Frank Primavera has been paying taxes on those lots since the 1970s. He has over $90,000 a lot in property taxes. He's contributed a lot to this town and really hasn't gotten anything in return. And to assess a snow removal fee on his property, I think, is unconscionable. And so I really think that part of the ordinance needs to be rethought, and I would ask that you carry the ordinance until it's been modified in certain ways. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Yes, I'm Dave DeZekin. I own 2 properties in Vernon. One of them is 114 Pocantics. I'm addressing, of course, the ordinance 1820 for the property maintenance. My house at 114 Pocantic is 2 houses up from the clubhouse when you're driving toward the first aid station. My front yard, my driveway, my front door is on Pocantic. The area adjacent to Breakneck Road is a wooden incline with trees, shrubs, bushes that I let grow wild to control the erosion. So it's uneven ground. It's difficult to even get up there. But at the end of that section is an 8-foot retaining stone wall that was put there by the town of Vernon. In addition to the 8-foot retaining stone wall, there's a 4-foot section of fence. In order for me to reach the sidewalk, to clear it, I need to go 12 feet up. 12 feet up. I have no access to this sidewalk. None. If I were to go around, I'd have to walk past 5 houses and lots, go down the lakeside, turn left, turn right on the Breakneck, walk 5 houses down again. Hopefully everybody's cleared that already for me. The sidewalk is only 3 feet wide. I can't even go ahead and use a snowblower. I measured my snowblower. The chute is only 3 foot. The fence, which Vernon Township put in, is 4 foot. I can't put it off onto Breakneck. You guys had that guardrail there. The fence is this high. I would physically have to go ahead, no snowblower, with a shovel, lift it up to this height, and then throw it over. In addition to that, because of the retaining wall being 2 foot wide, I would then create a whole pile, and we know how much the plows put there, of snow. Where do you people want me to put the snow, if I even make it there? And how many times do I have to go back after the plows come once I clear it? Seriously. Vernon Township created a barrier where I can't even get to the sidewalk, and now you're telling me I have to go and clear it, and you're creating a situation where I have to walk all the way around.
And I think one of the issues that arose is that when a lot of this was determined back in 1986, I'm not quite sure if there was a proper agreement.
There's no agreement regarding who's going to maintain any sidewalks when this construction project was undertaken. It was just done.
Excuse me,
Is this my
please.
time?
Yes, that's why I'm just asking if they
Thank
could
you.
Talk a little
stop.
louder, Mr.
So,
Sullivan.
but how long have you been clearing this area?
Since then. And that's
Isn't that implied then?
but that's what we're trying to do is to, actually this all came up because of Church Street, and actually what happened is the mayor wanted to have us put Church Street in it, and then the Highland Lakes issue came up. Just so you know.
I'm just asking though.
No.
I have no access to this.
Right.
You people
No, we
have to
understand. And
this.
as
you created me having no access.
And
And
just
now you're telling me I have to clear it, and I have no way to get to it.
Mr. O'Brien called me today, and I went up and I took pictures so I could show
Okay,
council.
I have
Right, but
pictures.
I
You
did go and I took a picture of the end, and I went to the parking lot and I took a picture of the sidewalk, so I was able to
Okay.
show it to council.
All right, and I highly recommend you don't pass this. So I guess you guys kind of knew that.
Thank you.
very much.
If I could just add something
And
to
your name,
these-
please?
I'm sorry?
Your name?
Ed Long. I'd like to just add something to the sidewalk issue.
Mm-hmm.
The sidewalks to nowhere. If you're in a wheelchair, you're nowhere. You can't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So the state's putting in all these Belgian block, and they have to put in curb cuts, but they go to nowhere. Think about it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Tom Urbano here for the maintenance, Highland Lakes resident. So I don't want to rehash what just went on, but I just want to bring up another point where I'm just a summer resident. So my home, I'm not even there in the winter. We don't have water. They shut the water off. So there's no way of me even knowing if there's snow. So I'm about 40, I'm in Byram. So it's really not practical for a non-resident to maintain the snow. And you probably think, well, just pay somebody, right? You can just pay somebody. So, we're paying taxes, paying about $4,000, no burden on the school system. So it's not like I'm paying taxes for a lot level, but we have a house, we're paying house taxes, and now you're asking us to do the snow, and we don't even live there during the winter. So I'm not even sure what they mentioned, where the trucks, so am I supposed to drive over, do the snow, go home, wait for a truck? I don't even have a place to go, right? I'd have to drive home. So it's just another concern you should think about with this ordinance. So, thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Hi. My name's Mary Rose Martorell, and I am a homeowner on Pocantix Road as well, which that ordinance directly affects. I own 104 Pocantix Road. My understanding is that when the transition happened in the 1980s, that the property owners did actually give property to Vernon Township so that you could do something efficient with Breakneck Road and make it safer and put up the barriers and put up a sidewalk. So even though it was not in writing, my understanding is that there was an agreement that the township would be responsible for taking care of the sidewalk and all of the things that were done. Now, I was not a homeowner during that time period, but I think we need to recall that Highland Lakes community started as a summer community. This was not a year-round community. My home does not and never has had heat, does not and never has had a wood-burning fireplace, does not and never has had a well. So therefore, it is strictly a summer residence. So I have water from May 1 till September 30th. That is it. I have no heat. So there is no way the prior owner of my property would have agreed to give property to Vernon if the agreement was that he would somehow have to shovel snow because he was never a winter resident. The house has never been used in the winter. It's colder in the house than it is outside in the winter. Okay, so I just think that we need to remember that is the history of the community. This was a community of summer residents. It was an alternative to being in the city, an alternative to the Catskills and all that other stuff. So, for the understanding that I would be able to accommodate that makes no sense. My understanding also is that that sidewalk is never cleared by the township when there's snow, and that not only is the snow that's fallen there, but also the plowed snow. So that's not just snow. Now we're talking ice. If the sidewalks are not used in the winter in that location, I don't see how that should affect what's going on here, because obviously the sidewalks in front of this area are used by the public. Those sidewalks in the winter are not. I mean, they're treacherous. There's no way to put a snow blower, as one has already said. There's no way to actually go around there to shovel it. You'd have to be in Breakneck Road, risking your life to try and clear your property. It just does not make any sense. That even though the attorneys probably did not put it in writing, which they should have, with the township, we are all clear that there is no way that my property owner or the other property owner, 114, who's never had heat, would have agreed to give property away to the township so that in the future they would be responsible for clearing snow. It doesn't make sense. So I just think it should not be passed. It should not be, let's go ahead with it and then rescind it, because that's just a real disaster waiting to happen. Because, once September 30th comes up, I can't be here. There's no water. I mean, there's not going to, once the snow hits, forget it. And my understanding, even though I don't come up here in winter, is the schools lost vacations. The schools were open extended amount of time this year because of that snow. So to have that responsibility be on the homeowners individually, or the community for that matter, I think it just does not make any sense. So I really do hope that the council will consider that full-time residents are not presently. That is not what the intention of that community was, which I think is a strong factor in remembering that that agreement would not have been made if that was the case. It was a summer residency. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, we live on Breakneck Road, 124 Breakneck Road.
Your name?
Ruth and I, William Muller, my name is, and her name, Ruth Prommel. And we have, 159 feet?
On a slope.
Yeah, there's the guardrail, and then there's a slope.
Retaining wall that comes up to about here.
There's no place to put it, really.
And
really.
I'd have to shovel into the driveway and then move it from the driveway to some other location to get our cars out. We just don't have the space.
I don't know. Even if you had a contractor do it, he'd have to bring in trucks and a backhoe. And I understand what nobody's brought up too is there's a $2,000 a day penalty. And I've been in the hospital twice in the past 2 years. Now suppose that, whoa, boy.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Who came up with that?
The last nor'easter, he was in the hospital and I had to do all the shoveling.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm just. This way, everybody can hear you. Because once they start speaking, then nobody can hear you.
Oh, okay. Is this loud enough?
Yeah, no, you're fine. It's just the background noise.
Oh,
sorry.
Okay. All right. I'd like to know also who came up with this idea. Why is this suddenly kicked up again? It was solved like
which
three
thing?
times.
Which
and now somebody.
Why did what come up? The
Well,
property
so-
maintenance or
The snow removal. In 2007, they told us we never have to go through this again. That we never, because our sidewalk is so narrow, it's not considered officially to be a sidewalk.
What I said earlier was that when this property maintenance ordinance was coming into effect, the mayor asked who's not here, but the mayor asked if we could add sidewalks in because of Church Street with the sidewalks, not taking into account Highland Lakes.
Yeah.
And then this whole thing came up.
Right.
So that's where the whole thing came up. And then Jack emailed me, and since then we've put the attorneys into contact. And then slowly, I guess it was Thursday and probably over Saturday or Sunday was when the attorneys have sent actually documents coming from there. I think one of the issues is even though there's no agreement, there really needs to be. I mean, this council's been faced with many issues where there were no agreements with things, whether it was overpaying on health benefit waivers to employees, to I could actually say there was a bridge in town that needed to be repaired that we had to say no to, that it put the cost on the owners. So there's a lot of different things because it's still all taxpayer money. Now, one of the things that the council can be faced with possibly is to go over this issue with the attorney is to ask, if we were to table it, can we amend it where if we removed this section of Highland Lakes, leaving this town center in it, but removing the Highland Lakes, but at some point the lake community and the township administration should immediately get together and actually come up with some type of an agreement, because it's really not right for anybody to not have an agreement, something in writing, so everybody knows, so it doesn't come up again. Whether it's
up to now, excuse me, it wasn't in writing up to now.
There's nothing in the recorded instruments regarding the transfer of property to the township to build this project that addresses snow removal, snow maintenance. It doesn't exist.
Okay.
That's why we're here.
That's why we're here. So it's not, for any community in particular. It's just that you happen to have a sidewalk, but still we have to make those decisions in order to be in compliance and have the agreements in place. Because once we have it in place, then it's there, and then it can all be addressed. And the town has been sweeping it for many years. And John Wahlberger retired from the DPW, so whenever it comes to something from the roads, that's who we call. That's who, what's been happening. So, like I said, that's something that if the attorney, and I don't know how the rest of the council, we'd have to discuss that. But the best option would probably be if we carved out and just kept the snow removal to the town center at this time, but we would still have to have that meeting. The meeting would still have to take place between Highland Lakes and administration with the attorneys to come up with some type of an agreement.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Yeah, if we were in South Carolina, we only got a few inches of snow, maybe I could do it, but, up here, we have our own weather up here.
Yeah,
Really.
sometimes it's so hard I have to use an ice chopper first and then shovel.
Yeah, it's like...
I'm in my late 60s. I can't do this anymore.
Okay, well,
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You don't have to, you can put just salt and grit down.
Should we close the meeting first? No, I'm sorry. I'm just teasing.
My name is James Opfer. I've been asked to say a few words on behalf of Our Lady of Fatima Church, which is located on Breakneck Mountain Road. Many years ago, a sidewalk appeared near our parking area, which is on the other side of the street from the church. Most of the snow that accumulates on that driveway is from the plows, which mercifully do a wonderful job in clearing the roads, but the snow goes onto that driveway. Now, we may pray that the snow would melt, but what that's taught us is that although our prayers may be heard, they may not be answered in the way we would hope. And I would ask the board to consider, since the adjacent parking area is plowed, some provision for an alternative pathway if, in fact, the ordinance is not going to be tabled or considered further, as I hope it will be. So on behalf of Our Lady of Fatima, I would ask you to consider the possibility of an alternative path along the parking lot, which is paved, and we avoid the Mount Kilimanjaro on the sidewalk. And my heart goes out to those people on Pocahontas Road who would have to rent a goat to get up to the driveway. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ken Marsh. I own the Lake Wanda store in Highland Lakes. I'm moving further on down the road from Pocahontas to the church. Now we're at the corner. I'd like to read from a prepared statement here, if I could. My father, Larry Marsh, bought the building that is now the Lake Wanda store 49 years ago in 1969. At that time, I was only 8 months old, but I'm pretty sure there were no sidewalks in Highland Lakes or anywhere else in Vernon. In 1996, he purchased the property on the corner across the street from the store at the three-way intersection of Breakneck, Canister, and Wawayanda Roads, and built what we called the Three Corners Plaza. Prior to this, the property was an undeveloped lot in its natural state. It was at that time that the planning and zoning departments of Vernon required us, to build the sidewalk that's there today. It wasn't put in by the town. We actually had to build it. He and I have maintained the sidewalk, which wraps around the inside corner of the intersection of Canister and Breakneck dutifully ever since. He can't do it anymore. He's disabled now, but I've kept it up, and I currently take care of the section all the way up past the church during the summer, keep it free of grass. This maintenance includes cutting the grass all during the growing season, removing all the road grit that has precipitated out of the piles of snow, which get pushed up onto the sidewalk by the snowplows all winter, along, like I said, over 200 linear feet of sidewalk. If you've ever driven in Highland Lakes during the winter months, I don't know if you folks have, you've seen how big the piles pushed up by the town can get. The sidewalk is located about 1 foot from the curb, and when the plows come by, they push the snow from the road up onto and beyond the curb directly onto the sidewalk. These piles get higher and wider with every storm until the plows can't even clear the road all the way to the curb. I don't know if any of the board has ever had to shovel the snow or use a snow blower at the end of their driveway where the plow has deposited its load, but this snow is not the same stuff that falls from the sky. It's heavier, denser, having been churned, compressed, compacted, and then in most cases refrozen. It can often become more like solid ice than snow. It's an arduous chore to clear even the width of a driveway. To require homeowners and businesses to clear tens or hundreds of linear feet of sidewalk of this kind of frozen material would impose an impractical, prohibitively expensive, unnecessary, and ultimately nearly physically impossible burden on the taxpaying and voting citizens of the town. And if this ordinance would require, when it becomes impossible to clear the snow and ice, the businesses and homeowners are required to cover it with salt or grits, that creates a whole other problem. Will not only put more contaminants into the lakes and waterways of our town, but also create more expense and work not only for the same tax-paying voting businesses and homeowners of Vernon, but also for the township road crews to clean from the roads and catchment basins and drainage pipes come the thaw. Very few people use the sidewalk even in the summer when the weather's nice. There's almost no foot traffic in the winter in Highland Lakes. I don't know whose idea this ordinance was, but it's not a good one. It will hurt more people than it helps. It will impose a tremendous financial liability on businesses and homeowners due to the expense of the work needed to be in compliance and the additional cost of insurance against slips and falls, which I understand homeowners are exempt from the slip and fall liability on the sidewalk, but businesses are not, which means our insurance would go up as well in such a case. I strongly recommend that you table this, omit the 07422 zip code from it. If you want it downtown, that's fine, but there's no reason to have it up in Highland Lakes.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Bonnie Rubin, Highland Lakes, and I'm here to ask a little clarification about. I was at the council meeting 2 weeks ago on the 23rd when the ordinance to get additional expenditures from the Open Space Trust Fund, and I believe that was modified during the last meeting for a only one-time 30% expenditure for recreational funds or whatever.
Are you looking at the ordinance or a resolution?
I'm looking at the ordinance, but I'm looking at the resolution also.
The resolution was reworded. There were a couple words. Yeah,
I only just downloaded it today, but it doesn't look like.
Yeah, the ordinance was reworded.
It was reworded.
Yeah.
That's what I'm calling.
The one that we're voting on does not have that. What does it say? Per year, each year, or something? That's
I was wondering how two separate ideas could be forwarded to the clerk's office.
It's one time. Yeah.
So they both comport with it. Okay.
Yeah.
That you answered my question.
Yeah.
That's good.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
My name is Judy Norton. I've lived in Highland Lake since 1985. The first election that I voted in was the election about this sidewalk. I don't think you have it. And I don't live by the sidewalk.
Excuse me, you're talking about election up in Highland Lakes?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't think you have any understanding of what the sidewalk is in the winter. In a normal town with a sidewalk, you have the curb and a little bit of grass, and then the sidewalk, and then a yard. And they plow the snow. When they plow the snow on Breakneck Road, all of it is on the sidewalk. There's mounds this high. No homeowner can get rid of that snow. It's dangerous for you to expect people to do that. You should table the variance.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sue Ross. I'm the president of Highland Lakes Country Club and Community Association. For those members of the council and others who might not be aware of the size of our community, Highland Lakes contains nearly 2,000 homes. 3/4 of our community are year-round residents and citizens of Vernon Township. I'm here to represent the interests of my community and to convey our outrage over Section 447-10 of the proposed ordinance number 18-20 entitled Property Maintenance. I need to be clear about one thing. If the council adopts this ordinance, it is a betrayal of a commitment made by Vernon Township officials to our community over 30 years ago. Documentation that supports the history that I'm about to review was shared with the mayor and all council members by email last week. In 1985, Vernon Township received a large state grant for improvements to Breakneck Road, and part of its plan was to include a sidewalk. When township engineers realized that these improvements would not be possible within the existing Breakneck Road right-of-way, and that in some circumstances Breakneck Road encroachment onto private properties, acquisition of the needed portions of private properties was recommended. After a series of meetings with private property owners and club officials, more than 20 property owners agreed to sell portions of their properties to Vernon. Highland Lakes, with approval by the membership at the August 1985 annual meeting, was authorized to transfer without compensation portions of lots and roadways and to grant a slope easement. Another township acquisition was made from the Vernon Township Ambulance Squad. Altogether, more than 30,000 square feet of land was acquired by the township, and the project went forward. To suggest that any of these transfers would have happened without an understanding by the property owners that the town would maintain these sidewalks is simply ludicrous and incomprehensible. Why would any property owner in their right mind take on that responsibility? Why would our club members have agreed by the required two-thirds majority to convey the lands to Vernon, knowing that the sidewalk maintenance would add such a significant cost to its maintenance budget? The answer, of course, is no one would have accepted that deal. What you are asking of our club and its membership goes far beyond impractical. It is impossible. In many places, the sidewalk is no wider than 2 feet. In some locations, it disappears altogether or is blocked by mailboxes. East of the clubhouse, the sidewalk is bordered on one side by a chain-link fence and on the other by the guardrail. When snow starts to fall and Breakneck Road is plowed, voluminous amounts of snow pile up on the sidewalks, adding to what is falling from the sky. Why does the town plow snow up onto the sidewalks? Because there is nowhere else to put it. And with that snow from the road comes the grits and the sand that are being spread. In no time at all, there are mountains of immovable ice. Oftentimes, after one heavy storm, the snow is higher than the guardrails. Add to this the fact that many potentially affected property owners do not front along Breakneck Road. At their rear property line adjacent to Breakneck Road, there are walls and fences constructed by Vernon as part of the Breakneck Road project for safety reasons. The only way these residents have of getting to the portion of the sidewalk is to walk along Pocahontas Road, then along Lakeside Drive East, and then on to Breakneck Road. Once there, a person would be incapable of reaching their portion of the walkway unless every single property owner has cleared their area, which no one will be capable of doing because of the weight of the snow and the ice that has accumulated and the fact that there is no place to put the snow given the tight constraints of the fencing and the roadway. In addition to this, 1/3 of the residents affected by this ordinance are seasonal members who do not even live in our community during the winter months. Not only are you asking the impractical and impossible, you are going back on an understanding that has been held between local government and Highland Lakes residents for 33 years. Proof of this is that Vernon has cut back the shrubs, treated for poison ivy, and cleared gravel and other debris from the walkway each spring since the sidewalk was constructed. Previous efforts by township councils in 1996 and 2007 afforded Highland Lakes the opportunity to review the history of and promises made about the Breakneck Road sidewalk. In those discussions, we relayed a conversation in 1996 with Kip Briggs, a former Vernon DPW director, in which we were told that there was never a question that the town would maintain the sidewalks. And a conversation that same year with former Mayor John Dorham, who stated that he would testify that he agreed to maintain the sidewalk at meetings with the club and property owners. The effort in 1996 ended after the club was afforded the opportunity to review the history. The 2007 effort ended when the Township Council tabled its proposed ordinance after reviewing the history of the Breakneck Road sidewalk, respecting the inordinate impact and breaking of promises made to our community. The council agreed that any sidewalk ordinance should be restricted to the town center zone only. We ask that the council reject this ordinance tonight after hearing our testimony. There is no way that Highland Lakes members and your taxpayers and voters can comply with what is being asked of them. To fine them $2,000 a day for not doing so is immoral and flies in the face of a good faith agreement that was made by our members to help the town so many years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me. We're going way beyond the public session portion, but and I understand, we all understand your passion about this, but what happens is it just keeps other people from coming up and speaking, so if you wouldn't mind. Is there anyone else that has any comments? Yes, please.
Hello, Council. Richard Wefer, W-E-F-E-R. I'm in the Sussex Hills section of Vernon, over by the Lamppost Restaurant.
Yes.
I'm just here to support the ordinance, the development of the pathway maintenance, to put it on the ballot to let the residents decide what to do with our money. The money that's apparently been stagnant for years and years. I'm a 27-year resident, so I've contributed to that also, and I'd like to see that put forth to the voters to use, to decide how to use that money. And I think it's a very good cause. I would support it myself, and I would advise any neighbors or friends that would ask me that this, using open space money for this trail system would be good for visitors and residents and children in our township. Our kids need more things to do to get away from the TV and computers and cell phones. So getting them out on a bicycle or walking is an excellent way to go. The Appalachian Trail is a prime example of how much use a trail system is used. I have company come from South Jersey. My parents come up from Toms River. We take a walk on the Appalachian Trail. It's a nice little walk, and obviously it's used extensively to bring people into our township who support our businesses. So I'm just supporting this. I'd like to see it put forth to the voters to make that decision in November, right? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to step forward?
Hi, I'm Tony Chili from Settlers Road. I'm here. Let's see, I get nervous. I'm here to ask the council to please vote yes to Ordinance 1826. As a member of the Vernon community, I sincerely believe that the residents of Vernon should be given the opportunity to vote on how to spend the open space funds that have been sitting for over a decade. We need to start attracting families again. We need to start building Vernon as a community again. There are many towns that are seeing the benefit of a trail system. Aquanic, Randolph, and Denville have either completed or in the process of completing the trail system and have seen the benefits of their communities. I know Mr. Wefer discussed the Appalachian Trail, and that is great, and so many people go, but for someone who's not extremely fit and active, that's hard for them to use. Like for children to ride bikes, for seniors to walk, I think a trail system would be better. I'm not asking you to vote in favor of the trail system because I know many of you don't agree, and that's okay. But I'm asking you to vote to put it on the ballot so voters and residents can agree and vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jenny Higgins from Woodland Hills Drive. And I came in a little bit late and I missed what somebody was talking about. But I was asking or wondering what the status is on the revised ordinance on the illegal dumping in town. I think when we talk about bringing families into Vernon and building Vernon up again, I've only been here 4.5 years. And had I known what was going on in my backyard, there's not a chance I would have moved my kids here. Not a chance. So what's the status And what are we doing to...
Our attorney addressed that earlier, so, but since you were not here, if Mr. Zielinski, if you could just...
There's an amendment to the ordinance on the agenda for tonight. It's Ordinance 1823. Okay, there's an ordinance on the agenda tonight amending the soil movement ordinance. It's 1823, so that will be considered later on in the meeting tonight.
But I don't think that's what she was addressing. I think she's actually addressing the court
With
case.
respect to the court case, as I stated earlier, Judge Brennan denied the township's request for a restraining order. The judge found that Mr. Wallace was not violating the stop work order. Beyond that, we're not going to comment on any pending litigation. So
Okay.
that's the information I can provide to you right now.
Okay, and just as an FYI for somebody who lives right behind the dump site, there's definitely a breach of the stop work order because the trucks come in all day, every day, and the clanking of the dump truck, I've never even heard a dump truck before I moved to Sussex County. And all I hear all day, every day, is clanking of dump trucks. So
Okay.
do with that as you will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mike Fury, 44 Sand Hill Road. I'm the current Environmental Commission Chair. I wanted to talk about the dirt dumping ordinance and what we've been doing as the Environmental Commission. Back in 2009, has a long history. I was on the Environmental Commission with Mr. Craig Williams, and we were made aware of the issue. And even back then, Mr. Williams advised the people who came to the meeting to approach the New Jersey DEP, since they're the regulatory authority, and ask them to address the issue. So we fast forward 8 years. There were several complaints in 2017. We were made aware of what was going on as the Environmental Commission. So we did a lot of research and follow-up. We contacted the DEP several times. We contacted the County Health Department. The DEP is responsible as a regulatory authority, but they do transfer that enforcement authority to the County Health Department, where it's their responsibility to carry out any kind of solid waste regulations. So we were trying to adjust those. So back in 2014, the Soil Conservation issued a stop order, as everyone's aware of, and nothing was done from that since then until now. So we've made considerable effort. Some of the things that we did as a commission, we offered some free water testing to some of the community residents who may have been impacted. We also contacted several experts in the field, an attorney, to come in at no cost to the township and talk to the council and the mayor and advise them of how this whole thing works. It's an extremely complicated issue, but the township is trying to deal with it. Last week, I contacted the DEP again after reading a letter from somebody from the Department of Environmental Protection, who in that letter stated that there was, after 14 site visits by the DEP, they found no evidence of solid waste. So we did a site visit with Congressman Gottenheimer, Mayor Shortway, and some people, and we also had a police escort out there a couple of weeks ago to see for ourselves what was going on, and it was obvious to us that there was a large amount of solid waste at the site. So I questioned the DEP, and I said, "There's after 14 site visits, it doesn't seem possible that these inspectors saw nothing." So we are following up. I asked the assistant commissioner to follow up on the issue. I think the township is doing everything they possibly can to address the issue. The point I'm trying to make is the mayor, business administrator, and the town council, they've made every effort to address the issue. The Vernon Township is one of the first townships to really address this statewide issue, and so they should be commended for that effort. So we're going to continue to work on it. We take it serious. We're going to continue to investigate and see what we can do. On the second issue, I also am the chair of the Greenway Committee, and as Craig has mentioned, and there's several people from the Greenway Committee. We've been working for the last couple of years on a recreational path, the Greenway. This ordinance is extremely important to make our efforts, or push our efforts forward to make this whole a reality. The 30% is a good start to possibly providing the funds that we possibly need to make this a reality. So I commend the council for putting that up, and I hopefully you can vote yes tonight, and more importantly, you'll give the people of the Township of Vernon the opportunity to vote yes or no if they want this recreational greenway. And I think and I appreciate if you can vote today, you vote yes, so you can possibly give them an opportunity to vote November. Thank you.
And just so everyone knows, we've gone into an hour, which I think we only have a half hour in our resolution, but we're going to be closing public session soon. So if anybody has any other issues. Hi.
My name's James Opfer, not to be confused with that James Opfer. I'm the one that's not good at public speaking, that skipped a generation. Thankfully, looks have too. I'm here because I'm a concerned citizen regarding the Silver Spruce property. I learned about this a couple months ago, of course, through Facebook. I kind of did a little investigating on my own, and everything that I've been finding out has become more and more insane regarding this issue. It seems that our backs are turned. I appreciate your comments. The last gentleman was up here. I hope you guys are doing whatever it is you could possibly do to put an end to this. It's very clear that this is an illegal dump site. I watched the video with Congressman Gottheimer and Mayor Shortway, and they even said it themselves, this is a clear violation. Just quick, with my research, in September of 2017, the landowner pled guilty to 6 counts of illegal dumping between January 2015 and May of 2016 in Warwick. He got 3 years probation, I believe. I haven't gotten that far with it yet. I'm just kind of diving into this myself right now. You'll be seeing a lot more of me if this continues, I'll tell you that much. They estimate that there was over 1,000 truckloads of his fill going to sites in Warwick, over 20,000 tons of material. Material that was found to contain wood, plastic, carpet fibers, wiring, and other debris, along with something called coal ash that contains lead, it contains mercury, and other metals. He was found guilty. Like I said, it was going on between January 2015 and May 2016. The dumping at Silver Spruce has been going on since 2013. That is within the time span of his fill going to Warwick. So to think that it's not the same fill is pretty crazy. And I'm just wondering, why have there been no soil samples taken from this property? Can you answer that question for me?
I don't believe that the township can just go onto Mr. Wallace's property and take a soil sample. So there's...
You don't believe? You haven't looked into it?
There's a thing called a warrant, and you have to apply for one to enter someone's property.
Himself, it's a clear violation. It's a permit to have a dumping ground there, which he does not have. It's a private residence. I mean, you guys really got to help us out here. This is a community. People are saying how beautiful it is. Over 30 years ago, we stopped radon from coming to this town. You can guarantee, well, I wouldn't guarantee it, but I'm pretty confident that there's hazardous materials being dumped in that site, and I beg that each one of you do the best that you can to help us out with this, because it seems that no one's doing their job here. Not saying you, but the EPA, the DEP, they're all turning their backs on us, and you know, it's time, because you know, if this doesn't get anywhere, the citizens behind me are gonna do what we have to do to stop these trucks. It has to end.
Is there anyone else that...
Sally Rinker, Vernon. So just for clarity, Resolution 18197 was adjusted tonight? Because it wasn't on the website adjusted. even up
adjusted.
until, today when I checked. So, yeah, but it was just done then, because it was, because I looked at it
it's
today
done.
earlier.
It's done. Excuse
So
me, both of you.
instead of arguing, so just clarify.
Continue.
to me,
It's done. It's
does
changed.
the resolution match the ordinance now?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you very much. So I would like to just reiterate something that I'm saying all too often when I step up to this podium, that representative by all the people here tonight for the maintenance ordinance, when we don't include the public, when we don't have workshops, when we don't vet things out entirely, what we have is the working backwards. And that's what we have here tonight. That's the reason that all these people are here, because we didn't include them in the discussion before the legislation is drafted. And I've been saying that
They're
time and
included.
time again. Please stop interrupting me, Ms. Murphy.
Yeah.
I've been saying it time and time again that we need to work in the correct direction so we don't waste everybody's time, cause everyone stress, and just have to do things over and over and over again. So that brings me to the several pieces of legislation on the agenda tonight. And they all refer to the changing of the use of the open space fund. Now, of course, we're all for recreation. I happen to have a business that's recreation associated. We all love this town. We all want to recreate and live our lives with open space, farmland preservation, the whole 9 yards. But what I really want to do tonight is talk about what's more important than changing the use of that fund, and that is following the process that you all voted on up there at the last meeting. Now, Craig and other people that spoke tonight in favor of putting this on the ballot, with all due respect, may not have been at the meeting a couple of weeks ago when all of you voted on the issue of the 30%. That was heavily vetted. Many of us came to this podium in disagreement that we did not want to see 30% of the fund used on the first day of each calendar year, right? We agreed, kind of like, that within 5 or 6 years, the entire fund would be depleted, potentially on just recreational items, and have nothing left for farmland preservation and open space. So tonight, when I looked at the ordinance as amended, it does not reflect your vote from the last meeting. And one only needs to listen to the meeting again to see that it was very clear in discussion. The clerk said the word cap. The attorney said the words and phrase one time only. That's not what's written in this ordinance. So though I don't disagree with potential changing of the use on some level, there is no clear depiction of how this money is going to be used and really how that 30% applies. It's much too ambiguous. Why were not those phrases and words used in the interpretive or in the question? So when you say you want to have the people decide, that's all well and good, but the people deserve to know what they're deciding on. Okay? And when we have a listing of items that may or may not be asked for from the mayor and voted on by council, you can't just say such as this, that, and the other thing. Such as could mean anything. Such as does not mean those items, and it could mean other items that aren't even discussed or put into this document. So when you're asking people to vote on something and you want them to make an educated decision, it needs to be clear. It can't be ambiguous. And the way I read this ordinance, this amended version, it says 30% of the fund. When does that begin and end? How many times does that apply? Especially in regards to the discussion that we had here.
It
that
says
we don't
30%.
want it to be the first day of each calendar year. The way it's written now, I think it could be any time anyone feels like going in and saying, we're going to take 30% of what it is today, or next week, or next month. Okay? So in my view, once again, this ordinance was rushed. It's something that required discussion and communication from the public. It could have warranted a workshop, God forbid. And now we have up against the clock for the ballot printing, we do know. So it was thrown on the agenda for introduction, second reading, bing, bang, boom. And it, again, is half-baked like all the other ordinances that have been tabled. And I think it needs to be reintroduced.
Thank you for your comments.
Because it does not It does not match your vote. So you're going to have an ethical and legal problem
Thank you.
if you don't fix it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? He was up before. Well,
I asked, I put my hand up, you know.
if you could
Thank
just make it
I'll be
brief.
I'll be brief, please.
We have a lot of people that are coming up.
Based upon what I've received, what I've read, this is a one-time deal.
Is that what it says,
It is what it says. Also, from what I understand, and based upon what I heard just now, the idea that we're going to have all these plans like right there in front of you in order to understand exactly what we're doing doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
We have to at least know that it's available before we make plans in how to implement going forward. It just, the way it is good.
All right.
Let's just...
Thank you.
More.
Yes. Come on.
Jesse Palladini, Sunset Ridge. I just want to cut to the chase on this open space thing. I was on the land use board when we created the open space plan and the greenway plan. I just want one question answered, and I'm glad that this has been a Q&A all night. Does whatever you plan to adopt tonight, resolution or ordinance, does it reflect what all 5 of you voted on at the last meeting, that it would be a one-time 30% of the total fund, meaning approximately $300,000?
We'll have our discussion. We'll have our discussion before the vote.
I'm asking you a question.
I'm answering.
So I'm the only person in this whole room who can't get an answer?
No, actually what I'm saying is we will be having our own discussion, but you're not going to be polling each and individual council member right now.
I'm not polling anybody.
Yes, you are.
I'm asking what the resolution or ordinance says. It's because what you voted on at the last meeting is not what the clerk advertised.
Thank you.
I'm not done.
No, I said thank you. I just said thank you. I didn't say goodbye. You may continue.
Okay. I want to talk about the soil ordinance, and this is exactly why you cannot continue to have ill-conceived, ill-written, and ill-adopted ordinances. You've got a whole room full of people here who have questions, and we don't even know what you do. Gene Murphy comes to the meeting, presents the ordinance, and boom, it's adopted. So
You have
you're
a
going to be
point,
adopting...
Jesse?
Excuse me,
You have a
I'm
point.
talking.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. So tonight you're going to adopt some sort of an amendment. But I'm confused about something, and I think that the people who live in Silver Spruce or any place else that are affected by this need to hear the truth. They need transparency. I keep hearing over and over and over and over again, DEP, DEP, DEP. I called the DEP today. The Environmental Commission encourages the people, contact the DEP. Well, I spoke with the DEP today, and the DEP told me that
Who did you speak to? Excuse me.
no jurisdiction over what's happening on the Wallace property. Excuse me, let me just get my thoughts here. I have it written down here. The person that I spoke with said that they have been on the property, they have investigated, and they find no land use violations. I don't know where this nonsense is coming from that they didn't see any soil there, or they said there are no land use violations. They said solid waste came out. There are no solid waste violations. So the DEP does not have jurisdiction here. Why do you keep telling people go to the DEP? You should all know as elected officials that it is Sussex County Soil Conservation District that has jurisdiction here. Why have you never mentioned them?
Would you like me to answer? Sussex County Soil Conservation, they were the entity that issued the stop work order in 2014. They report to the DEP. They do not report to Sussex County.
No.
So that's...
No.
Okay.
No, the DEP has no jurisdiction or authority over Sussex County. So either the DEP is lying?
Whom did you speak with?
Yeah, who did you speak
with? In other words, you're going
Who did you speak with?
to go after somebody that's saying they don't have jurisdiction.
Who did you speak with at the DEP?
I'm not going to tell you that.
Okay, thank you.
You can call and you can get that information.
Thank you.
Why should I tell you that when the mayor advertises that they're retaliating against the town?
You're making statements, and you said you spoke to someone, so the simple thing was...
I spoke to the head of the department. How's that?
So you
call
spoke
tomorrow
to
and find out.
You spoke to Ms. McCabe? That's
you know
what? That's the head of
the DEP has no jurisdiction in this. Stop telling the people to go to the DEP, because what you're doing is you're kicking the can down the road and making them think that it's the DEP that's going to do something, and this way you just totally abdicate your responsibility to take care of this situation. DEP is not responsible for this. They came, they investigated, they said they found no violations.
Can you tell us who told you that, so that we can contact them and find out this information?
I already asked that, Laura.
I know. That, but I'm wondering.
It's the head of the department, Mr. Armand Perez. Yeah, you're very welcome. He said they have no jurisdiction here. They came out, they investigated, and they found no violations. Why aren't you going after soil conservation when they're the people that put the stop work on it? Can you answer that question?
Make sure, as our attorney
We're
said...
not going to comment on pending litigation.
You're not going to comment on why you're not going
unless you'd like to
soil
further
conservation?
expose the township to litigation, it cannot be discussed.
I'm not talking about litigation. I'm talking about the proper entity that would have jurisdiction over this.
Ms. Palladini, we're not going to comment on pending litigation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
In follow-up with what Ms. Palladino had to say, I've been on the phone 3 times with Arthur, who's the Assistant Director for Enforcement and Code at Environmental Protection, or DEP, down in Trenton. He says, call me anytime if you have questions. So I called him a few times. And the last thing he said to me was, well, we have so much litigation and we have so many rules and regulations that we have our top lawyers working on this, and we can't just rush in there and do something that might be illegal. I got off the phone with him, and I threw his number out because it's just a never-ending line of garbage. Now, if you all want to sit here and watch that mountain get bigger and bigger, I don't know why. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what's in that debris. And you can see it from not even touching his property line. Take runoff samples of what's running down, and I live downhill from him. Why? Why can nobody enforce anything? Why? Is it going to take Channel 7 News to come up? Yes. I think we have a possible solution. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Yep, Mr. DeStas. Yes.
Pat DeStassi, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm well.
How are you?
I'm good. I want to thank these people that came here tonight to look for answers, ask questions, try to put the broken pieces of a cookie together, one piece anywhere, to see that, can anything be done about dumping, excavation, and all the problems that have occurred on my road. I live there. I heard the one gentleman talk about the DEP. The DEP, depending on who you talk to and what they're doing, you're going to get 1,000 answers. We get 1,000 answers. We don't do that. What do you mean you don't do that? So, since dealing with them since 2009, I can give you a very brief version of they are empowered to do quite a bit. But it is not solid waste at this point. Why? Because everything there they can't see. They might, and nobody's going to stand there watching dirt wash off, so stuff. They're not going to do that. So whatever inspections were made, at best, were terrible by land use. I'm sorry, by solid waste. Same thing with the other part of this, where the trucking of material, the second part of DEP. I know for a fact they lie in wait for trucks. Stop them, see what's in there. Because they're 6 hours away. And they made a very good attempt. 4 times. Could not do it. So, why? Because they have no evidence. You've heard me say time and time and time again. The answer lies with the Highlands land use. The Highlands.
The Highlands Council?
That's right. The Highlands. The acts that protect the properties we are talking about. We are in it. All right? Why are they more empowered than the other two? Because their primary objective under rules and laws and remediations and fines deal with water, trees, dirt removal, dirt hauling on properties. Where does all the water go that vast excavations are doing without a permit from them? And one of the big ones in their code is slope. Slope. Why would slope have impact? Because slope to the DEP, okay, will tell them, all right, this fellow's not getting too much surface water. Whatever action is being done through the permission, or at least under the eyes of Highlands, right? They have an answer for everything. It's not 1 or 2 pages saying, well, if this happens, this is what the result is. It's 395 pages long. And in the section that I was going to bring, but I couldn't, there's 21 pages dedicated to what I've been fighting for since 2009, 2010, 12, 14, 15, tonight. I don't quit. And I'm here to tell you that these people, all the townspeople, need to know that on Wednesday, I'm going down to the meeting of the Highlands in Chester. But I'm not going alone. We're past the part of, well, why haven't you helped us? We're way past the part of, what do you have with the 76 pieces of documents and evidentiary material to get a warrant? We're past that. What we are at, Chuck, is you are negligent. You're negligent. Why are you negligent? Because the land use people, land use Highlands.
Who you're saying is negligent?
I believe the Highlands. I don't believe enough people have ever been sent there, ever. Because if they had, they would see a lot of things that other people are seeing. All right? And they're by their own laws. They don't respond to people. They don't respond. I mean, they know me on a first-name basis. And they don't respond back to me now. Why? Because this is escalated. So, for the people that are here, I don't know how far this governing body can go. All right? I don't know how far Sussex County can go, if anywhere. But I'm here to tell you, the Highlands Division, I would ask that you go into that on the internet and go into the section of erosion, dumping, it has it by category, and just read. Once you read that, you're going to feel the same thing I feel. I've always felt. They can correct it. They will correct it. They're compelled to correct it. If they can't do it there, then we'll do it in court. But they have to do it. It doesn't have to be everything spinning out of control, Gene. It has to be nose to nose with them, nose to nose in Trenton. I'm in there on the 9th. Eyeball to eyeball. You have it enforced A, B, C, D, E. That's negligence. Considering you've had my evidence for many, many years. And they have it. They have it. So that's my closing remark. Along with the fact that we're going to take this back. One way or another. Silver Spruce Drive will be cleaned up. This will end. The next person thinking about it may stop thinking about it 5 years from now, once the action is taken place. And then Vernon reclaims its nature-bound duty. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Amanda Hayes. I live on Lake Pochung, just down the road from Silver Spruce. First, I'd like to thank all of you for allowing us all to speak. I know it's well past the allotted time, and I'm sure that we all appreciate the fact that you are letting us speak. The question that I had, just within the last few years, Wantage Township had the same sort of problem with illegal dumping, and the DEP actually did go in there. And I believe that the gentleman was taken to court. I believe he was fined, and I believe that they did a stop work order. Would it be possible for our attorney to talk to Wantage's attorney to find out what they did in order to get this stopped? Because I've seen the dump trucks. I know what's in those dump trucks. And when Josh Gottenheimer went and with Mayor Shortway and did the video, as they said before, you can actually see construction debris. You can see rebar. And so to be told that this is not a problem is a slap in the face to the citizens of this town. It really is. And since it happened in Wantage, maybe they can offer or shed some light on a way to get some answers for this, because it's only going to get worse. This guy has trucks going up and down. I almost got hit head on twice in one day by trucks that were going to Silver Spruce. The guy was down by Tall Timbers. He came across the center line. I was right by the house that sits close to the road just before Tall Timbers, heading towards Sussex. And that guy, I could feel the wind on my car. The fact that he didn't take my window off, I was so shook up. If I didn't live 3 minutes from there, I probably would have pulled over and puked. It was frightening. And then down where the intersection of 565 and 23 is, I was by the car dealer, and a guy came around the corner so fast, he was over the line in my lane, and I had really nowhere to go but on the grass. So, we are seeing tons and tons and tons of these trucks every single day. I thank God every day that I live a mile off the main road and don't have to deal with it. I can't imagine what it must be like for people who live on 565 or worse yet on Silver Spruce and have to deal with these trucks. These guys, they don't care. They're just going like bats out of hell. And it's not right. It's not right. I mean, it was the scariest thing. All I could think was, oh crap, where am I going to go? Because they're just really, well, I laid on the horn. The guy looked up. So I don't know if he was texting or I don't know what he was doing. But he moved over enough that he didn't hit me. So, like I said, maybe you can contact Wantage. Maybe they have some answers or ways to help us with this. But please know that all of us would be so thankful if we could get something done here, because it's really upsetting. It's really upsetting. Thanks again for letting everybody speak.
Thank you. Unless anyone has a different subject, we're going to close to public. Is there any? Okay, may I have a motion to close?
Motion.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're going to move on to our minutes, the regular meeting minutes of July 23rd and the executive session minutes of July 23rd. May I have a motion to adopt the regular and executive session minutes?
Motion.
I have a first and a second. Roll call?
Councilmember Ooms?
Yes.
Councilmember Kadesh?
Yes.
Councilmember Van Tassel?
Yes.
Councilmember Allberger?
Yes.
Council President Murphy?
Yes.
Motion carries to approve minutes. Take a recess for a moment.
No, I think we're good. Do you?
Just keep going.
We're going to move on to our consent agenda. Do any of the council members have any?
Yes. 188.
188?
You're only reading it to 18196, right?
Yes. Okay, may I have a motion? May I have a motion to adopt resolutions 18-188, and I will read them, but through resolution 18-196.
18-187.
I'm sorry. 18-187 through 18-196 with the removal of resolution 188. May I have a motion?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All right. I'll read these now. Resolution 18-187, authorizing placement of permanent signs at Vernon Township Veterans Memorial Park by the Vernon Horseshoe League. This authorizes the sign for the park. Resolution 18-189, this authorizes the sale of bands for $4,649,000 on behalf of Vernon Township. Resolution 18-190, this authorizes the acceptance of the Samus Road project. Resolution 18-191, this authorizes the award of the contract to the successful bidder. Resolution 18-192, this is a refund for a totally disabled veteran. Last name is Bradshaw. Resolution 18-193, this authorizes the use for the co-op for paving. Resolution 18-194, this authorizes the use of the co-op for Wawayanda Road improvements. Resolution 18-195, this authorizes the use of the co-op for Barry Drive. Resolution 18-196, this resolution is authorizing the appointment of an interim chief financial officer for Vernon Township. The employee's name is Donnell Bright. How do you say the last name? Dakota? Dakota. May I have a motion? Oh, I have that. Roll call.
Councilmember Ooms?
Yes.
Councilmember Kadesh?
Yes.
Councilmember Van Tassel?
Yes.
Councilmember Allberger?
Abstain from 191, yes to the rest.
Council President Murphy?
Yes.
Motion carries to adopt 187 and 196, 188 being separate. Extension notice.
Okay. Resolution, may I have a motion to adopt Resolution 18-188?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Wait.
Discussion?
What are you talking about?
Discussion on 188 that you pulled.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said 98. You said 88. Okay. Yes. Okay. Go ahead.
Discussion. Did you have any?
Yeah. Could you explain this?
This is for the maps for the reval. Is that correct?
So is this the two? Did we spend 200 already, and this is in addition to the 200, or is this 40,000 out of that 200?
Out of the 200 that was originally.
Okay. What was the total that we spent already? Does anybody know?
I don't have that figure.
But we had to go back for maps again. We went.
No, I just want to know what the total is that we spent already. If anybody has that answer.
Play with it tomorrow.
The business administrator would have had it. We don't have our CFO here, so.
Okay.
Phone call.
Councilmember Ung?
And-
Yes.
Councilmember Kadesh?
Yes.
Councilmember Fantastic?
Yes.
Councilmember Hallberger?
Yes.
Council President Murphy?
Yes.
Motion carries to adopt resolution 18.
Excuse me.
Calling Randy. So he doesn't have to stay here all the time.
Yeah, sure.
We have our chief here this evening, Randy Mills, and I just wanted to ask if you could just maybe address anything from the accident the other evening on Route 515, because I know that there have been several members of the public that had asked a lot of questions about the weight and the trucks coming down. So rather than keep you here all evening.
Well, I'm not exactly sure whether you want me to talk about the specific accident or about the ordinance in general.
Just the ordinance in general, and I know that our business administrator had reached out to Hardiston in order to try to get Hardiston Township to adopt an ordinance similar to ours, so to try to stop some of these trucks from coming down 515 before they actually get to Vernon.
Well, the ordinance in general and the issue in general is actually a lot more complicated than it might seem. I mean, it seems easy to just say, hey, no trucks get to come down the hill. But first of all, a school bus is in excess of 8,000 pounds, or 4 tons. Yeah, an F-250 or 350 towing a trailer. So any landscaper or mason. So you're talking anybody who does any work in Highland Lakes, because the same weight limits on Breakneck and the same weight limits on Barrett Road, you're telling them that if they do a job at the intersection of, Breakneck and Cannister Road, that they're going to have to go out to Route 23 to come back into Vernon. Mm-hmm. Not to diminish the accidents that we've had in the last couple months, we do have to realize we went 26 years in between significant incidents on that hill. All right. I was at all 4 of the incidents. I was at the tanker, I was at the bus crash, I was at the dump truck that turned over, and I was just at the last scene. And the accidents are preventable, but there's one common denominator with those accidents, in my opinion, and that is the driver's lack of knowledge of what they were getting into. We, to my knowledge, have never had an accident with a local contractor or a local vendor who knows the hill. Their driver knows the hill. They know what type of condition the vehicle needs to be in to go on the hill. So it's complicated. But now, in the last couple weeks alone, we've issued 2 warning notices to local contractors who were coming down the hill to make the quote-unquote local delivery, because that's a little vague too. What's a local delivery? It says it has to be specific to the road. All right, so if you're making a delivery to Acme, by ordinance, the truck's allowed to come down the hill. All right? If they're making a delivery to Heaven Hill Farm, that's technically still part of 515. All right? They're allowed to come down the hill by ordinance. So, enforcement is happening, but it's also, we can't stop a truck and ask them, are you making a local delivery? That's not reasonable. All right? We need to talk about going back to the county level and getting an ordinance that makes sense, that doesn't put an undue burden on local contractors who have to drive down that hill on a regular basis, who, like I said, in my opinion, we've never had an issue or a problem with one of them or one of their trucks, but at the same time limiting these vehicles that the drivers clearly don't know the road and or their vehicle's not in any condition, as was the case in the bus accident, to be coming down a road like that. So if you have any specific questions, if I know the answer, I'll try to answer it for you, but that's pretty much where we sit with the ordinance. And enforcement does happen. Like I said, we've issued 2 warning notices just in the last couple of weeks. But we can't stop every truck that comes down the mountain, because I'm not even sure we'd be allowed to stop a truck to ask if you're making a local delivery. That's borderline at best as it is.
And
in interviewing the drivers, has everyone been asked, have you shift down to first gear before you came down the hill? I
couldn't tell you. First of all, I certainly couldn't tell you about.
Will we do that in the future?
Well, again, a truck driver should know. Some of these vehicles might be automatic. I don't know.
I can shift down.
The question has to do with signage. The problem with signage is people ignore signage. Everybody thinks that, okay, it says 8 tons, but that doesn't really apply to me. It's like with a handicap spot. Well, I'm only going in for a minute, all right? But, the problem is that we need to come up with a weight limit that makes sense. I'm not so sure we want to be limiting an F-350 mason dump from coming down the hill, which 8,000 pounds, that's limiting by regulation. If Earth Tech is doing a job in Highland Lakes, they've got to go out to 23 or go up through New York State to get back to their place, because that, by ordinance, would be in violation. And I'm just using them as an example. It could be any local contractor. That truck's technically not permitted on the roadway. Is that really what we're trying to prevent? Not my opinion. We're trying to prevent the tankers, the fully loaded buses, and the tractor trailers. So can we come up with some language that makes sense that's enforceable? Again, local deliveries. I can't say it enough times. It's a stretch to stop a truck to say, are you making a local delivery? Because what if they are?
Yeah.
So does anybody have any specific questions?
Well, I just commenting on Councilmember Kadish's in 2015, that oil tanker, that small one with the home heating fuel that came down, he was actually not even in gear.
Well, yeah.
So, when you're saying, are they going down? Yeah, he decided to come down without.
Yeah, there was
being
no
in
accident in that case. He was able. He had a brake failure, a partial brake failure, and I was actually on the scene of that one too.
Yeah.
He had a partial brake failure. He ended up on 94 a little ways.
Yeah.
We all look. If you spend any amount of time down there, you're inhaling a lot of asbestos if you stay at the bottom of that hill, because even the cars that come down, their brakes have been pretty well tested. But
thanks for the heads up. I'll think about
that. Using their brakes, they should.
Well, a large truck, but not every vehicle is like that.
I've seen excavators come down.
Yeah, but they know where they're going. A lot of these people, they're unfamiliar with the roads.
There are other safety precautions. Look, back in the 90s, 92, when this happened, they were going to put a runaway ramp in. All right, in my opinion, this driver in the last accident had a choice. There were vehicles stopped at the stop sign in front of him. He chose to turn off the roadway. Yeah. Nobody knows whether that turned out to be the right decision or not, but what else is he going to do? I mean, he lost his brakes. Yes, he shouldn't have been on the road. We don't know whether the condition of the truck was in the proper condition, but the bottom line is it happened. So, like I said, if you have any specific, the ordinance is right online. It's specific. It states the 3 roads: Barrett Road, Breakneck Road, County Route 515 have a 4-ton weight limit with the exception of a local delivery.
A question.
Local delivery, including a delivery to that one of those specific roadways.
A question I do have is, our business administrator did reach out to Hardiston to see if their chief of police could contact you, just to try to get them at least to try to mirror our ordinance for something.
Well, that wouldn't obviously. They might require the input of the chief of police, but that's really an administrative thing.
Well, I think what happened was that their manager actually suggested that it go to the chief. So it wasn't, yes, because
that's a matter of getting proper signage on County Route 515. But as long as you have an exemption in there for local deliveries, I still think it's tough to enforce. Because again, is Hardiston going to stop a truck in their section of town when the truck might be going to Sawmill Estates?
And
all right, it's a matter of coming up with an ordinance that makes more sense than this one does.
Yeah, and actually, when we met with the county, because that's when Chuck brought that up to them, so there was discussion with the county on signage and anything. So I guess the
signage would help, but there's signage there now.
Well, more enforcement.
But again, you're trying to enforce something that, in my opinion, is difficult to enforce. Yeah. Can you really stop a truck to ask them if they're making a local delivery? I mean, I'm not so sure.
I think what the business administrator had suggested was posting the signs and actually posting the fine to give them a little bit more food for thought.
And, you can change sign. I'm not against any of that. You can change signage. We should put a runway ramp in for if something like this happened again. I don't know logistics. I'm certainly not an engineer. I don't know where we would do that. Right. But we've dodged a couple bullets in the last couple weeks. There's no doubt about it. Either one of those last 2 accidents could have been way more severe than they turned out to be.
And it's a little more difficult for them to turn around once they get to Vernon and Hart.
Well, and in all honesty, that's one of the things this driver in the last accident stated. By the time he noticed the signs, there was no place for him to turn around. Now, I don't know at what point that was exactly. Could he, if he had known, could he have turned up Highland Lakes Road and gone back Canister? I don't know at what point he finally noticed the sign.
Probably halfway down 515.
I don't know.
yeah.
There was a language barrier with this particular driver, so we had to bring in an officer to speak to him. But could he have turned into Lake Conway and made a U-turn? Maybe signage to that effect would be a big help. So if a driver does make a mistake and finds himself on the road, he knows. Now, once you do that and you tell people you want to send them through Lake Conway to turn around, you know who's going to be in here. The people in Lake Conway saying, why are you sending the trucks through our neighborhood? But would this driver have taken an option if he had seen a sign that said all trucks turn here? I don't know. We don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Making some changes that make some sense versus an ordinance that's really difficult to enforce. And even if we could enforce it, we certainly don't have the manpower to just station somebody on 515 and monitor truck traffic. That would be incredibly burdensome.
Yeah. All right. Anybody have any questions? Well,
I don't care.
Sure.
If you stop all the trucks from coming up over a certain weight limit, there's other access roads to their destination.
Well, for example,
There are other
if you're saying don't allow any trucks,
any large trucks.
okay, well, right now the ordinance is 4 tons, 8,000 pounds, all right?
So that
Yeah,
goes down.
you're right. They would have to go back out to Route 23, and they would have to come around. So what you're doing now to the local contractors who do business in Highland Lakes,
Saves a life.
okay,
You were lucky.
and I'm only going to temper that with, you're right, we've been incredibly lucky. But we also went 26 years. If you want to use that type of logic, they should close the parkway, because there are fatal accidents on the parkway several times a week.
I'm not saying to close the road.
No, I know what you're saying, and you're right, there's another way. But do you want to tell local contractors that rather than make a right-hand turn and be in their destination in 5 to 10 minutes, they've got to now make a 40-minute trip?
That's the big point.
It could potentially save a life. So would lowering the speed limit to 20 miles an hour on every roadway. But it's a balancing act, and that's what we have to do here. We have to come up with a balancing act. What's that?
We saw the horror. What happened before. We saw what happened.
I was there. I know what can happen, and I know how lucky we just were. We all want the same goal. We all want, but we've got to do it in a reasonable way, in a way that makes sense.
All right. Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
I just want clarity. So there is an ordinance.
Yeah,
You
99-30.
can enforce it.
I'm not saying we can't enforce it. I'm saying that if we were to actually issue a summons, I think there could be an issue as to whether we had grounds to stop the truck to simply ask a question. Where are you going?
This might be a silly question, but if you had a few officers sitting there for a couple of days and they handed out summonses,
We do it.
wouldn't the word get out?
Well, no, because this is a contractor who is coming from a unique vendor to make a delivery to a unique local business. The problem's not with the, I mean,
No, it's
we
not
have local contractors that drive these roads all the time, and we never have issues. These 4 incidents we're talking about, my best recollection, even back in the early 90s, none of those, they were not local route drivers. They were not local contractors. We need an ordinance that we can actually enforce.
You need to, right,
okay. You know,
so Freeholder Roads did say...
but we do. We have something that's called selective enforcement details. A selective enforcement details means an officer goes and he's going to sit at a certain area and monitor traffic. That's done on a regular basis on 515. Like I said, they just issued to 2 local contractors warning notices last week that, hey, as a reminder, you're not supposed to be going this way.
Okay.
All right? But there's only so much you can do.
All right, the confusion was whether there is an ordinance and whether you can
9930.
enforce it.
9930.
And you can. Okay, thank you.
I have a question. So how do these truck drivers know that they can come through if they're making a local delivery? Because it just has
They wouldn't know.
tonnage
They
on
don't
there.
know anything.
So they're just
You're right. They
ignored.
would have no idea we have an ordinance. The only thing they're going to know is they should see on Route 23 that if your vehicle's in excess of 8 tons, you should not be making a right-hand turn to go down County Route 515.
So by asking them if they're making a local delivery, I mean, they wouldn't even know that they're allowed to go.
Well, what you do is ask them what their destination is. You know,
It's
and
4
if
tons,
their
right?
destination is Acme, by ordinance, they're allowed to go. If their destination is any place along 515, which 515 is all the way up to Price's Switch Road, and then it makes the left-hand turn, all right, the ordinance allows them to do that. If they're making a delivery on Vernon Crossing, they're not. If they're making a delivery down 94 towards, you know, heading towards the center of town and towards McAfee, they're not permitted to go that way, and they should go the other way. And that's not a burden to them. That's the frustrating part. If they're not, even a delivery on the crossing could just as easily go the other way. That's only a couple-minute detour from Route 23 versus somebody pulling out of Highland Lakes Road or somebody who would have come down Breakneck Road, then making a turn and having to be told to go back out to Route 23 to come back around. Signage is an issue, but I also happen to believe that signage, people tend to ignore signage, especially if they've seen it multiple times. I mean, how many times have all of us gone down Route 515, and I couldn't even tell you for sure how many signs there are as far as what the weight limit is, because you saw it once and you know what it says and you ignore it. So if you change the sign, they might not even notice there's a change, unless you change the location too. But look, like I said, we all want to get to the same goal, but it's a matter of using common sense to get there. And, it might be raising the limit, but maybe not allowing certain vehicles to come down at all. It's just a discussion that has to be had, but to me, it's really not as simple as just saying, hey, nobody can come down the hill anymore. I think that's incredibly burdensome to the people and the local contractors that have to work in this area, of which there are a lot. Landscapers only. Like I said, a landscaper pulling a trailer technically is not allowed to come down that hill if they're not making a local delivery. If they're returning to their own shop somewhere in Vernon, they technically are supposed to go out to Route 23 and come back down. So it's a balancing act, safety versus being reasonable.
And if I may, it also puts, to play devil's advocate, it puts an extra burden on the people in Highland Lakes who want to get deliveries, because then we always have to pay more. I've heard that many times.
Look, like I said, it's a balancing act. There's no one simple answer. And like I said, it's frustrating to us too. People do call and they say, hey, there's a bus coming down 94, down 515. Well, if that bus is going to Heaven Hill Farm, by ordinance, that bus is allowed to go down the hill. If the bus is going to Action Park or Mountain Creek, then it's not allowed to be coming down that hill. So it's a tough one.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, we have our public hearing on ordinances. Ordinance 1822, an ordinance of the Township Council, the Township of Vernon, County of Sussex, State of New Jersey, amending certain portions of Chapter 250 entitled Fees and Escrows of the Township Code. This revises the fees section of the Township Code. May I have a motion to open public hearing for Ordinance 1822?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Is there anyone from the public that would like to step up and address Ordinance 1822? Seeing no one, may I have a motion to close?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Roll call?
Oh, no, we need a motion to adopt.
Oh, sorry. I'm trying to get ahead of myself. May I have a motion to adopt?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Ooms?
Yes.
Councilmember Kadesh?
Yes.
Councilmember Van Tassel?
Yes.
Councilmember Wahlberger?
Yes.
Council President Murphy?
Yes.
Motion carries to adopt 1822.
Next, we have Ordinance 1823, an ordinance of the Township of Vernon, County of Sussex, State of New Jersey, amending Chapter 484 of the Municipal Code of the Township of Vernon entitled Soil Fill Placement and amending Chapter 250 of the Code of the Municipal Code of Vernon of the Township of Vernon to include soil fill permit fees and escrows. This ordinance shall amend the soil placement ordinance to include 500 cubic yards and the cumulative effects of minor permits. May I have a motion to open the public hearing for Ordinance 1823?
Motion.
I have a motion and a second.
Second.
No, there was, sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Is there anyone from the public that would like to address Ordinance 1823? Yes.
Jesse Palladini again. I just want to clarify something. At the June 25th meeting, there was a discussion about this soil ordinance, and Councilwoman Sandy Ooms made a motion to hold a work session meeting. Dan Kadish seconded the motion. Gene Murphy asked, all in favor. Every councilman sitting here said aye. Yet the meeting minutes of the June 25th meeting makes no mention whatsoever of this official vote and action taken. That, to me, is either inaccurate or falsifying minutes, because you all voted to have a work session on this ordinance. And the minutes say Councilmember Ooms made a motion to schedule a work session to review needed changes to the soil fill ordinance. That's all it says. It doesn't say Councilman Kadish seconded it. It doesn't say Jean Murphy asked all in favor, and it doesn't say that you all said aye, and you all agreed to have that work session. Yet, at the July 9th meeting, when it was up for adoption, Councilmember Ooms again commented that she would like a work session, and that you had voted on a work session, and Councilmember Murphy said, no, we never took a vote. Yet you did take a vote. So the minutes are inaccurate or falsified, and you all approved those minutes. So here we are again talking about the soil ordinance, when clearly this ordinance was ill-conceived and ill-worded, and you still need to amend it. And there was a room full of people sitting here who wanted to talk about the soil ordinance and to talk about the soil problems in our town, and yet you went against a council vote. I'm wondering if Councilwoman Jean Murphy and Township Clerk Lauren Kirkman aren't working behind the scenes in tandem to either falsify the official meeting minutes or put in inaccurate information in there. What's going on? You all voted. That's an official vote. You can't just come to the next meeting and say, no, we never voted, and the clerk verifies that because she didn't put it in the minutes. Now, I happen to be a recording secretary for a couple of different entities and have been for many, many years. And I know that the number one thing, you don't have to do verbatim minutes, but the number one thing you do have to put in minutes is official action taken. So here we are. You voted on a work session. You all agreed. Clerk didn't put the action in the minutes. And now here you are, and you still haven't had the work session. I'm asking, when are you going to have the work session before you adopt this ordinance?
Are you through? This will not be a question and answer. So if you have any other comments on this ordinance?
That's my comment. You are violating the law. You don't unilaterally run this council, Councilwoman Murphy.
Thank you.
You have no authority over the others, and the clerk has a responsibility to be accurate in the minutes.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else that has any comments on this?